Hey guys, Pete here, HVAC Greatness. Are you a prepper? Maybe you used to not be and now you're thinking about it. Well, you probably ought to be. I intentionally avoid certain topics on this platform for obvious reasons. I'm pretty sure if I said what I thought, and I've been talking about this for years, I would have been deplatformed because you has to control everything. But anyway, I digress. Are you a prepper? Are you storing food and water? Are you stacking silver, buying crypto? Or do you have ammunition? What are you doing in anticipation for what appears to be right down the road from us? If you're not, maybe you want to look into this a little bit. But for those of you who are, what about your company? I don't know if you like my little AI-generated HVAC prepper guy. Didn't come out too good. But anyway, if you're not preparing for what's coming in this economy, I'm afraid that you're in for a very negative surprise. If you are members or are following success stories, HVAC business owners that have had tremendous success in a different market during different times, dealing with customers with different problems, you're not going to make it. You're not going to have that kind of success. What I'm saying is there's a lot of good people out there teaching a lot of good stuff, but I don't think that this is near realistic. I think that there's three key things that you need to be focused on intently right now as you prepare for the pullback on this economy and the effect it's going to have on our industry, in your market, with your business. Inevitably, it is going to happen. Now, if you are prepared, if you do have some water stored, if you do have some medicines put back, if you do have a pallet of refrigerant, a bunch of contactors and relays, that's good, but the type of preparation, what I'm talking about, is really a strategic one. So there's three key things I want to talk to you about. Number one is marketing position. You need to stand out from your competition in a way that the right type of customers choose you to do business versus the cheapest guy. And I'm going to tell you, I've lived in third world countries and seen where a lot of this gap between the upper class and the lower class has already existed for many years. And I know what those type of businesses look like as opposed to the U.S. and Canada, the way we do business, right? It is different. Many of you have come over from other countries and you've seen it as well. If you're just a technician selling your skill set, the value of your skills diminishes tremendously, and it's not pretty. Even though I value what you do and you value what you do, but it's what people are going to pay for that matters. Essentially, a strong marketing position is very important, and you have to know the psychology behind your marketing position, the branding, and everything else. That's number one. Number two, you have to have processes that create success. I'm talking sales. I'm talking service. We're talking the customers swiping their cards or making their payment, whatever means you're using, in order to get that sale. We're talking the sales and everything in between there. Okay, they gotta notice you, and then they gotta buy from you, and somewhere in the middle there is how much you are charging. Now, I don't care if you're dealing with high-end customers versus people who they just need it fixed and they're desperate, they don't have the money, or somewhere in between. But if you are looking to attract more high-end customers, they too are going to be sensitive to what costs are. It really doesn't matter where they are on that spectrum. So having a sharp pencil and understanding your numbers is going to be critical. And that's the part I'm going to talk about. Now, for many of you, you've seen this program. And for those of you who have bought into this, and let me just be up front, if you haven't, shame on you. This is a $1,000 program, $997 that I've cut in half for you. For less than $500, just put it on your card. You can own this and have total control. And when you watch what I do right now, the lights should come on. For For those of you who have invested in this before I added these things, you can go in and you'll be able to see on these links that these have been added to the original templates on these that you own. So all you have to do is update yours. So this is a new template right here, and I want to talk to you specifically about getting customers during difficult times. So we know that you're going to have to say the right things and everything else, but let's talk about this little thing right here. So I put on a calendar for you here a scenario on residential owner-operator scenarios. Now, first of all, the pricing methods, if you're bigger companies, you just plug your numbers in, it'll work. For you smaller one-man operations, this is an example for you, okay? This is very powerful, and I want you to understand what we're going to say right here. So let's just take January, for example. In January, we want to look at our residential repair history, if you have some, and or at least have an educated guess on what amount of work is available out there in January for service calls. Is there more than normal, less than normal? What do you typically get organically with people calling you versus what is available out there? I shouldn't say what you can do, because you can always do more. What I'm talking about is what's available. You know, the pie may be a little smaller, and you're trying to get a little bit bigger piece, but in this case, we're going to use the number 30. We know that we should be able to get about 30 service calls as a one-man owner operation because typically we only get 22. Historically, we'll get 22. So that leaves us 8 shy. So we put the number 8 down here in the service column because we're going to have to go buy 8 new service calls. You get where we're going. We need 3 changeouts in January. Historically, we can always get 2, but we need 3. So we're going to go buy 1 more changeout. And if you have a standard, typical closing ratio of going on 3 estimates to get that 1 sale, we need to buy 3 prospects. I just realized I've got this thing going in the background. This should quiet down a little bit. So if we're buying 8 service calls and we're buying 3 estimates, we need 11 new prospects to come in January. Okay, hopefully you get this. So we play out February, we play out March, and what we end up with is a total over here of exactly how many service calls we need to be getting every year, January through December. How many changeouts we need to get every year. And accessories, I usually figure for every 10 service calls you go on, you should be able to sell 1 accessory, even if you're not salesy. You're just helping your customers out with needs. And so once we've got these totals here, and we've got an average here, this is what our monthly quota is typically built on for your overhead. And so we also have all of these purchase customers right here, 148. We need to buy 148 new prospects and customers during the next 12 months. So how do we convert that into advertising funds? Well, according to Google, it costs closer to $200 for you to attract and service a new HVAC customer to your business, okay? I'm seeing not 200, but more like 300. You need to know what that number is, what it costs you to get a new customer, and you do that by measuring, okay? What did it cost you to get the lead, and then how many of those leads became sales, and so you can figure out how many it cost you per sale. And so 148 needs up here to keep us busy all year and add capacity times $300. That's $44,400 in advertising that you need to build in your advertising budget, little Mr. One-Man Owner Operator. And you're saying, "No, Pete, there's no way." Hear me out. There's more than a way. You're really going to be surprised at this, and you're really going to like this. So what we've done here is on your available ad spend, we've got $44,400. And we're figuring $1,500 a month for SEO. A good SEO person could cost you 3 times that, more like $4,000 or $5,000. But you need at least a basic one in there, somebody that knows what they're doing so that they can get you up in the organic ranking so that you get more of those calls for free. Well, quote unquote free. If you're not up there, they won't see you. If they don't see you, they won't click. If they don't click, they won't call, right? So When we add those two up, we have a budget here of $62,400. So for those of you who have your own numbers, you may want to enter that into your budget. For those of you who use mine, this is what this looks like. It looks a little busy. It's really easy. We just kind of go through one at a time. And if you'll notice right here under advertising, we've got $62,400 because we know what that is. Now, it averages at $5,200 a month. If you don't spend that and you're hitting your quota, don't worry about it. That all goes to the bottom line. That all becomes profit. Also, there's a line over here I want to explain, number 9, the owner-operator draw, and it says refer to the capacity budget. What I've done on this one over here on your budgeting is I've got these little scenarios. I plugged in our averages, 29 service calls, 3 changeouts, and the owner's involved in every job, right? And so over here to the right, we've got an hourly rate of $45 an hour that he would have to pay to somebody else, but he's basically keeping. Well, we need to look at what that is in terms of dollars. And in this case, this owner-operator is generating $4,230 worth of wages, field labor, only on the billable time. This is not his downtime, okay? So if we look at down here, 4230, which he's billing, but he's drawing $5,000. So that leaves a deficit of $770. Guess where that comes from if you don't calculate it? It comes out of your profit. So we put it back over an overhead. This $770, if you look back over here, is here. Boom. Now we have an overhead. Now, let's get to the pricing strategy. I don't want to linger too much on this. I just want to explain to you how we come up with these numbers. This little business here, let's go back to the very beginning here, $156,000, we divvy that up based on the capacity of the installation department, the service department. We do have maintenance department, but this particular case, this owner-operator is just getting started. So we've got about 60% of our overhead that comes from the service call and about 40% coming from the change out. Now, here's how that works. If I've got $62,400 that I've got to pay in overhead, that means I've got to hit my quota. Let's go back over here of changeouts. We've got 34 or 35 changeouts that we've got to hit in order to make our overhead. This is why it's important to do a quota. Now, where I'm going with this, if you've done your math on this, you'll see that we take this and we divide it by 280 billable hours, which works out to 35 jobs. We have to build $1,783 in overhead in order to pay the bills. So let's go look at what that looks like. I've got this job here, $3,500 worth of equipment, $500 worth of materials, $4,000. I plug my numbers in, and if you'll notice, there's my $1,783 basically. And I'm paying myself task pay, and I just hire a helper for $300. I do have my financing in here, my sales tax in here, and then, of course, the financing fee that will come off of the total. But most importantly, I've got a break-even number here. And we are pricing based on net profit, not on gross profit. They've taught us that for years. This is where you need to be if you're not pricing this way. Now, don't get me wrong. We're going to accommodate the market value, but we're going to price based on net profit, and what you're going to ultimately do is be dialing in on that number to keep your quota and actually surpass it where possible. And I'm going to show you why this is such a brilliant thing. This is going to blow your mind. You're not going to believe this. Okay, so here's what that looks like. So I've got this job that typically most of my competitors are doing a 50% GP on. I know they're going to be about $10,400, and I want to be $9,400. So I'm going to put in I'm going to override this here with a selling price of $9,000, and I'm selling it for $94.74 when everybody else is selling it for $10.4. I'm literally $1,000 higher because I'm a little guy and I can do that, and I'm getting to work hopefully. So my gross profit on that would be $3,789.10, of which a net profit is a healthy 22.29% net profit. Very strong. Okay. And if you can do that, this is why we look at net profit as a calculation, but gross profit as how to compete in the market. And they're gonna wonder what you're doing when you see this. So let me show you how this works. Let's bring up a calculator here. And let's say that you've got this overhead of, let me go back to the beginning. We've got this overhead over here of $62,400. $62,400. So if I've got $62,400 that I've got to pay this year out of my change outs, and each one gives me an overhead in my calculation of $1,783. So if I divide this by 1783, it's actually a little bit less than that. I've got to have 35 change outs this year. Okay. If I divide my 35 change outs by 12 months, I know that my monthly overhead is going to be right at 3. So I'm going to have this $1,783 times 3 change outs. It's going to put $5,349 in my account to pay my bills. And now keep in mind, that's not the whole company. That we got the service department's got to do its part, change out's got to do its part. Okay, that's why we set quotas. But here's the magic. Let's say you sold those 3 change outs. And let's say that you're going to sell a 4th one and you're actually going to exceed your budget. Let me show you something really cool. Back to the calculation. This is our overhead. This is our net profit. But not when you pass your quota. You've already paid the overhead. Remember, we sold 3. Now, your net profit, if you sold it at the exact same amount, is not $2,000. It is $3,789.10. And you're saying, wow, that's wonderful, Pete. Well, let me show you how to use that. There was a trick that the automobile industry used to do years ago. If you wanted a good deal on a car, you came in the last few days of the month and you could get a killer deal. Why? Because the overhead had already been met based on the company's the dealership's calculations, and anything they made above that was all gravy. So here's how you leverage this. Now you go in and you've got the ability to do the work, and you realize that this is your net profit, and you're typically you just want the job. And so let's say you come in and you're wheeling and dealing, and the customer says, you're at 94, I'll give it to you at 84. And so you come in, and let's say you manually override 8,000. Don't forget that it has to add the financing fee on the bottom, right? So in order to be at 84, you come back and say, I'll do it for 80/21/05 and I'll finance it. How does that sound? And they're like, great. Well, typically you would have dropped your profit to $1,000. You probably would have done that anyway. But your net profit is actually what used to be your gross profit, because you've already passed your quota of the 3 change outs you needed to pay the bills. Now you're 100% profit. Okay? This is how this is done. Now, keep in mind that some months are better than others. So some months you're only going to do 2. So we have a running total on that. Now, once we get the dashboard in place, what we want is the ability to see your monthly quota, your monthly overhead, and then your monthly running tab totals, both in your installation department as well as your service department. And because you may find that you're spending more time doing service calls and you didn't get that change out, are you making enough on service, or vice versa? Maybe you're doing more change outs and you didn't have time to run more service calls. Both ways, we want to hit that overhead and surpass it and actually start shifting into the profit level of the month every month. And so this is how it's doing. Now, let me give you another example. Let's say that you don't have this 3rd job yet. It's getting towards the end of the month. You're not going to make the bills. You're not going to make the bills because your overhead. If your overhead don't get paid, you don't have enough money to pay the truck payment. You don't have enough money to pay your draw. You don't have enough money to pay, for all the different expenses in the business. You don't have enough money. You got to hit this number. So what are we going to do? We're short one. I need that. So what we do is we look at this number here, this number break even, and I see right here that technically everybody's in the $10,000 range, I might pop in here and say, I'll do this for $7,000. Okay. Now, it looks like I made a $6 net profit. I really am less concerned about this as I am this, because my gross profit just exceeded my my overhead. I made the month. And if you have this type of an understanding, and you're getting into the point where you're looking to negotiate that sale, this is the power. This is the important thing that you need to have, and give your sales staff. You may pay a commission rate of 0.08%, and so we know that if we do it here, or the price just went up. I don't know if you noticed that. It went from 74 to 79 because it adds $560 worth of commission in, and you can equip your salesperson and let them know your commission's in there. Go get the job. Just do not go into negative profit. You take it as low as you need to do. You just get that job. The financing fee gets paid. Your commission salesman gets paid. You get a gross profit of $1,789 to pay your overhead of $1,082. You get your draw. The office staff gets paid. You have the advertising budget. You got everything that you need because you had to make your quota. This is why your numbers are no good unless you have a quota. Okay, we set a quota for you. You need this many service calls every month, and therefore we know how many every week. We got to have, for example, 8 service calls this week or 10 service calls this week, whatever that is. I got to do it. If I'm not getting it, I have the advertising budget. I run a little bit of advertising, get my service calls, and I turn that sucker off. Right? I make sure I'm making my quota. That's the way this is done. So I hope that this makes a little bit more sense as we go into tougher times, because I think what you're going to find is that a lot of people initially are going to drop their prices, and they won't know what you know. Okay, well, if you know this, whatever this would be this. If you know this, you're going to know what job you can take and what job you have to walk away with. Pete, I don't negotiate my prices. Okay. You're going to have to get over that really soon because you're going to have to negotiate. So part of your process is going to be a negotiation in which you have the ability to dicker with your prospective client because they have a really tight situation now that they didn't have before. Used to, you could stick your chest out and say, well, you pay my price or you go somewhere else. It's going to change. So you're going to need to understand these numbers for that initial probably 6 to 8 months of people just cutting each other's throat. They're going to cut each other's throat until they go under. And it's going to take that long. It's going to take months for them to go under. They're going to ruin the price levels out there, and they're going to go under. You're going to have to know which jobs you're going to have to walk away from and how to make this up. So if you're watching your dashboard, which again, I don't have a dashboard in place on this. This is going to be a software really soon. But what the tool that you're looking at here, it will enable you to extract that information and manually do that at least. Because I've got every repair scenario in there. We got a SKU number in there. We got a description in there. We got the total price and the GP price is in there. So you can extract this data and make sure that you're running total. But you don't have to if your price is right and you know how many service calls you need, how many change outs you need, you'll be okay, right? You don't have to measure the money if the numbers are dialed in right. So we're going to have to get you through the first 6 or 8 months when it gets really ugly, and then you'll come out the other side, and you're going to have to be marketable towards the high-end customers. Higher-end customers are not going to want to do business with these people that might just be trying to sell them something because they're in need. They don't want to do business with people in need. They want to do business with successful companies who are not in need, and they make a profit based on integrity and treating and trustworthiness and things like this. And so these are some of the dynamics that are going to change. So fundamentally, we need a strategy for this. We're going to be forming groups on this. I want you to be a part of this. I want you to come in. If you don't have this program, pull out your credit card or debit card or whatever. Get it. Get this. You'll own it. Get it. I'm telling you, you need it. Nobody's teaching this. They're teaching the old, dated dual overhead and gross markup and mark up your parts at this rate and your labor up at that rate. That is a guess, guys. This is precise. It is exact. Got a lot of time invested in this. I've been doing this for 40 years. I did business those other ways. And I would run my numbers, and I never could understand why it wasn't adding up. And I was missing all the leaks. This program catches the leaks. You're paying a guy $45 an hour, and you're using that to calculate their labor. You're wrong. It's going to be more like $60 an hour if you got a 25% burden on their labor, right? You need to be able to calculate that. It's all in there. You don't understand this quite yet because you're great at technician, but all this other stuff is new and you're going to have to learn it. And there's a learning curve. We got you. It's all in there. So I know it sounds like I'm selling and preaching, but this I put a lot of time in this. Everybody I've shared this with loves it. I watch their eyes light up as they realize, oh my gosh, I just gave you one scenario on the change outs. We've got this full done on your residential maintenance agreement programs. We've got it full done on every repair. In fact, we have something called level of service repair book built in there that you can just print your own repair book. Flat rate, right? Same thing with your change outs. Print your own change outs based on tier. Good, better, best, supreme, and even a promo price book for your promotional systems that you're going to have out there. We got to put a strategy together. We got to get this right, and I want you to be a part of this. Pete Ramsey here, HVAC Greatness. Going to put a link below. Come join me. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.